There's a pretty interesting civil war happening in politics right now, and it has everything to do with Donald Trump, which I know is a massive, massive surprise. But here's the thing. It's not really what you'd expect. I mean, the battle seems to be between people who actually hate Donald Trump enough to burn down everything and actually support and vote for Kamala Harris. You know, people like Joe Walsh, people like Liz and Dick Cheney. It's a battle between those people and people who still hate Donald Trump. I mean, they still really, really hate the guy, but they're just not sure if they hate the rest of America enough to vote for or support Kamala Harris. And I'm going to show you a pretty epic meltdown by Joe Scarborough, he's another one. I mean, the guy's a goner. The guy claims to be a conservative, but he hates Republicans for sure. He especially hates Donald Trump. And I'm going to show you a pretty epic bitch fit by him. But first, guys, I'm going to show you, this is the kind of thing that's causing this poor guy to just completely lose his mind.
I'm an undecided voter. I'm never going to vote for Trump, but I'm not sure I want to vote for Kamala. And my fear is that she doesn't really have a very good command of what she wants to do as president. It would be great for her to sit down with you or George Stephanopoulos or you, Stephanie, and get a succession
As if she'd sit down with me.
Why not? Ask her, you know, look, George W. Bush, 25 years ago, was asked if he could name the president of Pakistan and other people. He had no idea. And people said this guy has no command of foreign policy. And it turned out to be a prescient set of questions. It's not too much to ask Kamala, say, are you for a Palestinian state if Hamas is going to run that state?
Okay.
Yes or no?
And let's say you don't like her answer. Are you going to vote for Donald Trump?
No, I'm not.
Kamala
I just said I'm not going to vote for her.
Harris is not running for perfect. She's running against Trump. We have two choices. And so there are some things you might not know her answer to. And in 2024, unlike 2016 for a lot of the American people, we know exactly what Trump will do, who he is, and the kind of threat he is to democracy.
I don't know.
So it's unclear to me how there could be an informed...
The problem that a lot of people have with Kamala is we don't know her answer to anything, okay?
But you know his answer to everything.
And that's why I would never vote for him, and people shouldn't vote for him. But people also are expected to have some idea of what the program is of the person you're supposed to vote for. You're just not supposed to say, well, you have to vote for Y because X is this, that, and the other. Let's find out a little bit more. And I don't think it's a lot to ask her to sit down for a real interview as opposed to a puff piece in which she describes like her feelings of growing up in Oakland with nice lawns.
Then I would just say to that, when you move to Nirvana, give me your real estate broker's number and I'll be your next door neighbor. We don't live there.
Obviously, there's a lot to unpack there, but the main point is that Bret Stephens, who's essentially the resident conservative over at the New York Times, he's basically begging Kamala Harris, just begging her, man, to at least lie to him enough about some policy positions so they can just feel good about voting for her, so he can just feel good about telling people to vote for her. And that's what he's doing. He's begging her to lie to him. And the answer to that from the MSNBC creature that was on with him was just the prototypical progressive position. She's basically, you don't need to hear anything from Kamala Harris because Donald Trump is so bad. As if it truly does not matter what the woman believes. It truly does not matter what she'll do or what she thinks because Donald Trump is so bad and Donald Trump is just so scary. And here's the thing. My only thought on that, if they don't believe it, if Donald Trump was really that bad, if he was really that much of a threat, why would they risk another Trump presidency by running a candidate that's so bad and so radical and so polarizing? I mean, the fact is they wouldn't. If they actually believed it, they wouldn't. They're literally trying to give us the most radical presidential administration on purpose. And they think that their best bet is to just sneak it past us while they're running against a guy who they've been working their tail off to demonize and destroy for a decade. And when you think about it, when you really look at what they're doing, it's a smart strategy. I mean, especially if they can actually make people believe that it really doesn't matter what Kamala Harris believes, that it really doesn't matter what she'll do. Just like this lady says, she's not running for perfect. She's running against Donald Trump, she says. I mean, how freaking crazy is that? I mean, these people really believe that you have no choice but to vote blue no matter who. And hilariously, if you don't do that, if you don't vote blue no matter who, then you're in a cult. I mean, this is how crazy these people are.
That really is. And I like Brett, and I like Bill Maher said, he's a fan of what he reads, but I don't know what universe he lives in. He actually said, we don't know her answer to anything.
That's just
false.
Not true.
It's just false. He obviously hasn't been watching the campaign. And again, I know you're going to get into this, but compare what she said. And again, we can go through the issues with Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Whether it's that rambling answer on child care, whether it was the nonsensical answers during the debate. And by the way, she wants to debate again. Donald Trump doesn't, because he doesn't talk about the issues. He can't talk about the issues. But again, there's this false equivalency from the anti-Trump crowd and also from the mainstream media.
She served as a senator, as a prosecutor, as an attorney general, and the vice president. She also has a record.
She has a record.
She has something you can compare to Trump.
Can you imagine just being a normal thinking person and you're flipping through the channels and you accidentally watch The Morning Joe? I mean, it's insane, man. And the only good thing about MSNBC is that only crazy people watch it anymore. But the bad thing about that is watching it is only making them even more crazy and even more detached. I mean, Joe Scarborough just told his viewers that anyone who thinks that we don't know where Kamala Harris stands on the issues just hasn't been paying attention to the campaign. I mean, people watch this, man, and they take those talking points back to work and back to their friends, and they try to convince people that Kamala Harris has a record. You know, she was a prosecutor, attorney general, a senator, vice president. All very impressive. But, I mean, here's the thing, man. If you just break them down just one by one, line by line, just X's and O's, her only record is achieving titles. That's it. She only got the titles. She accomplished nothing positive, nothing meaningful at all in the entire time. I mean, she literally just kept failing up like only a Democrat can do. But Joe Scarborough thinks people actually believes this stuff. And I'm going to show you more of his breakdown, man. I'm going to show you. It's awesome, but just a quick reminder of who this guy really is. I'm going to show you a quick reminder of who he really is. But first, guys, if you appreciate this kind of content, make sure to hit the like button. It really, really does go a long way to helping the channel grow, and I really, really appreciate it.
But comparing that guy's mental state, I've said it for years now, he's cogent. Mm-hmm. But I undersold him when I said he was cogent. He's far beyond cogent. In fact, I think he's better than he's ever been. Intellectually, analytically, because he's been around for 50 years. And, you know, I don't know if people know this or not, Biden used to be a hothead. Sometimes that Irishman would get in front of the reasoning. Sometimes he would say things he didn't want to say. This is, and I don't really, you know what, I don't really care. Start your tape right now, because I'm about to tell you the truth. And F you if you can't handle the truth. This version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden ever. Not a close second. And I've known him for years. The Brzezinskis have known him for 50 years. If it weren't the truth, I wouldn't say it.
So this guy either makes a habit of going on TV and lying, or he's just really not all that intelligent, right? It's probably both. It's probably a pretty impressive combination of both. Probably just not all that intelligent and just a very dishonest guy. But this is who he is. I mean, he claims to be making the conservative case for voting against Trump. And I'm here to tell you, man, no matter what these people claim about their principles, there is no conservative case to vote for Kamala Harris. It does not exist.
Believe it or not, it's even worse. But something's happening out there where people are trying to flatten. And it's not just the anti-Trumpers. It's also people in the mainstream media. They're going, yes, Donald Trump, he's saying all of these crazy things. But did you see that? And there were two people this weekend with significant columns going, but did you see her answer to the local Philadelphia question, where she actually gave a 3-point answer? And she talked about, $50,000 for startup small businesses. She talked about tax breaks, $25,000 tax breaks for first-time home buyers. She talked about a private investment partnership that would help create the building of 3 million new jobs. Those are specific answers to specific questions. And yet, two people, one at the Wall Street Journal, one at the New York Times, were like, did you hear her talking about her background and her middle class? And then they go, oh, yeah. She got to the policy questions later, but she never tells us anything about anything. Actually, that's just a lie. It's an absolute lie. And it also ignores what politicians have been doing for hundreds of years. When somebody asked me about jobs, I always started talking about my father at 40 years old, losing his job, being laid off at Lockheed. I talked about driving around the South, my entire family when I was 7 or 8, sitting in the backseat, my dad going to town, trying to find a job so he could support the family. And I kept going through that. And then I would end by saying, and that's why the greatest social policy is a job. And these are the 3 things we're going to do to create a job. Nobody mocked me. Nobody's ever mocked a politician for actually talking about their background and how it influences their policy. But now, as we get in the home stretch, the anti-Trumpers who just can't admit they are going to vote for a man who tried to overthrow American democracy, who did what they did on January 6th, they're desperately trying to create the permission structure so they can vote for a man who said he was going to terminate the Constitution, that the chairman of the Joint Chiefs should be executed, that he told his staff members that Mike Pence deserved to be hanged. I could go down the list. I could do it for hours. Whose own lawyer said he could kill his political opponents using SEAL Team 6 and could not be prosecuted for it.
They just keep getting crazier and crazier, man. But here's what I really have never understood about leftists, right? They require all these things to be viewed in the aggregate, right? They need these things to be believed in the aggregate. They all have to be lumped together in just one nasty propaganda mess, right? They can't actually dissect or understand any of these things individually, because if they do dig in to any one of these just vitriolic, lazy Democrat narratives, every single one of them crumbles. They're not real. They're not supported by anything anywhere even near reality. But I mean, here's what I really don't get about these people. Whenever they do find out that the things they believe aren't real, it doesn't even matter. It doesn't make them question any of the other things that they believed, and they just keep believing just every crazy, stupid thing they hear. As long as it's got Donald Trump in it, they're going to believe it. I mean, it's just insane. I mean, that's literally what insanity looks like.
Could not be prosecuted while he was in the White House. I could go down all of those lists, but they're looking at an interview where Kamala Harris gives the answer. They just say, oh, but she told her life story at the beginning of that Philadelphia interview like no politician has ever done. Did Ronald Reagan do that? Did Barack Obama? Yeah, damn straight they did. Did Bill Clinton tell stories? Yeah, damn straight they did. This is absolutely insane. The false equivalency. You see it from Brad Stevens. You see it at the Wall Street Journal. You see it at the New York Times. It's insane, the false equivalencies they are desperately pushing at the end of this campaign.
Well, and I just would add a couple things to that, Joe.
Here's the funny thing, man. It's not about any false equivalency. I mean, it's not even about her sharing this goofy fake life story. The thing that bothers most thinking, fair-minded people is that it's the same memorized non-answer answer every time she gets answered certain questions. I mean, if she told the fake life story and then landed on a policy position that was actually supposedly informed by whatever life story, that would be fantastic. But that's not what she does. She never, ever lands on any policy. And Joe Scarborough and people just like Joe Scarborough, they want you to believe that, her middle-class upbringing and care for lawns is actually a good answer. I mean, it's insane. It's completely insane. He's completely wrong. And another thing he gets wrong is, these never Trumpers that won't vote for Kamala. He says that they're looking for an excuse to vote for Donald Trump. They're not. They're actually begging for an excuse to vote for Kamala Harris, and they're just not finding it. I mean, these people will tell you that they're conservatives voting for Kamala Harris. I mean, the most progressive and radical vice president and candidate in the history of our country. And I'm here to tell you, man, That is not a thing that exists in reality. I mean, if you want to know the truth about what these so-called, never Trump conservatives really are, just read between the lines while Liz Cheney speaks. I mean, she might claim to be a conservative, but if she is, I mean, she's the first conservative that I've ever heard of that is willing to campaign for progressives and literally threaten to destroy the entire Republican Party if she can't find a way to banish Donald Trump. I mean,
it's hard for me to see how the Republican Party survives because it's been so corrupted. But we need two strong parties in this country, and so we'll have to figure out how we move forward.
Can the party purge itself of Trump? Is that something that can happen?
I think the way that I think about it, and this is based upon spending a lot of my time traveling around the country and talking to people, Republicans and Democrats and independents, that we need our political system to reflect the goodness of the American people. And that, I think the majority, I don't have any question that the majority of Americans don't want somebody like Donald Trump to be the president. The majority of Americans really would like to have a president that their kids can look up to. They really would like a president they know is going to defend the peaceful transfer of power. And I think that's where we have to start. I don't whether it's organizing a new party. Look, it's hard for me to see how the Republican Party, given what it has done, can make the argument convincingly or credibly that people ought to be voting for Republican candidates until it really recognizes what it's done. And so I think, making sure that on an individual basis we're casting votes for serious, responsible people, that we're encouraging people to get involved and run. There is certainly going to be a big shift, I think, in how our politics work. I don't know exactly what that will look like. I don't think it will just simply be, well, the Republican Party is going to put up a new, slate of candidates and right. Off to the races. I think far too much has happened that's too damaging.
Well, so the Republican Party was actually born out of the ashes of a failed party. Are you thinking then there has to be a new party here that you're just suggesting just now, right?
I mean, it may well be because, again, so much of the Republican Party today has allowed itself to become a tool for this really unstable man. And so it certainly has moved away from standing for anything of substance, anything of policy. And I think, we're going to have some entity that actually, can be making the case for the kinds of conservative causes that I believe in terms of a strong national defense and limited government and low taxes, the things that have represented the Republican Party before Trump.
Mm-hmm. Prototypical tired garbage, man. I gotta say, man, if you are an adult and you're choosing a president based on who you think your kids are going to look up to, then you have literally zero clue how the world actually works. And on that same topic, I mean, if you think that your kids are going to look up to Kamala Harris, then you're insane. I mean, there is no freaking universe that anyone with the ability to critically think and reason should look up to Kamala Harris. And I'm sorry, man, for subjecting you guys to so much Liz Cheney, but I honestly think it's really important to listen to these people and to hear who these people really are. And she speaks calmly, she sounds intelligent, and she really hopes that people think that she's credible, because her goal, man, she hopes that she can win some hearts and win some minds. She hopes that when she talks about conservative causes like low taxes and strong national defense and limited government, that somehow you're going to be tricked into thinking that Kamala Harris represents that, believes in that, and that Donald Trump doesn't. And I'm going to tell you right now, she does not care about these so-called conservative causes, right? I don't see how she can. You cannot care about taxes, you can't care about strong defense and limited government, and then go out and campaign for a candidate that literally opened the borders, proposes the largest tax hike in all of world freaking history, and has supported the government's ability to enter your home and see how you store and handle your constitutionally protected weapons. That just doesn't make any kind of sense at all. And here's the thing, most of these never Trumpers, they will tell you that they support Kamala Harris, but they also support a Republican Congress. So she can't get away with any of the crazy stuff that we all know that she wants to do.
You look at the presidential race. You know, you guys like Paul Ryan, that tell me, you give me a list of reasons why Kamala Harris would be the worst thing to ever happen, but still won't vote for Trump and say something like, well, it's not really a vote for Harris, and I'm not really, I just can't. Yeah, because it is a binary choice. So a vote not for Trump is a vote for Harris.
So a couple of things. First of all, I voted for Donald Trump.
I know
twice,
you did, but
16
but
and
we're
in
not
2020.
talking about.
But when you lose an election and you try to overturn the results so that you can stay in power,
we all are familiar.
You lose me. You lose me at that point.
Then
so
you'd prefer Kamala Harris.
Hold on.
You would prefer Kamala Harris.
I acknowledge that the outcome is a binary situation, but my choice is not. I have the choice, and you and I are just going to disagree on this.
What if it came down to one vote, and it was yours that put Kamala Harris, then it is yours.
It is an acceptable position for me to say that neither of these candidates can be my choice for president.
It's going to be one. 28% corporate taxes, 45% capital.
I get it. So the answer to that is Republican control of the Senate. And that is absolutely essential. If the other side runs the table, then Katie barred the door. They will repeal the filibuster, and they will be dragged by their left wing, which clearly is in charge now. And I think Kamala Harris proved that with her vice presidential election. And it's huge tax increases. It's probably some version of Medicare for all. It might even get to an expansion of the Supreme Court because there will be no breaks. But the good news is, I think Republicans are going to take the Senate.
Right. Perhaps, but there's plenty of regulatory moves, as we've seen from Biden. There's sort of executive orders. There's plenty of things that even if the Senate does.
Well, yes, there is damage that will be done there. However, a Republican Senate can mitigate that also by its power of confirmation, and they've got to hang tough on some of these nominees.
The best you can hope for is maybe a defensive gridlock type situation where the worst case scenario doesn't happen. The filibuster's not ended. The Supreme Court doesn't go to 18 people.
Exactly.
We don't make it a civil offense to cross the border. We end the filibuster. All
of those things don't happen if Republicans are in control of the Senate.
Just listen to what these people are actually willing to risk. I mean, these people are so Trump deranged that they're willing to risk, without a doubt, regulatory catastrophe. The guy admits it. That will happen. And they're willing to risk the possibility of our government being completely controlled by radicals, if not next year, then 2 years after that, possibly, right? They want you to believe that Donald Trump is so dangerous that we should risk a packed Supreme Court and we should risk the highest tax increase in human history. Basically, they acknowledge that if it doesn't end up right, the left is going to have no breaks, but it's all worth it because of bloodbath and because of January 6th and blah, 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 blah. These people are lying to you. They're not willing to risk those things. I think a lot of these people actually want those things because with those things comes more power and more opportunity for them. But they try to sell it as if they're supporting some sort of gridlock, right? As if anyone from either side actually wants a broken, non-functioning gridlock government. We're tired of that. The people of this country, they want to pick a side and they want to see that side succeed for once, finally, for once in a generation, once in many generations. And you got to hand it to Liz Cheney a little bit. Obviously, she picked the wrong side, but she's done pretending, right? She's completely abandoned the whole, it's okay to vote against Trump as long as Republicans control Congress. She is actively endorsing and campaigning for a Democrat Senate.
I have not endorsed in any other Senate race this time around, but I served with Colin. I know him. I know what kind of a congressman he's been. I watched him. As you said, we were on opposite sides of issues and opposite sides of the aisle. Not every issue on opposite sides, but I also know Ted Cruz. I've known him for over 20 years, and I know that he will say anything if it serves his own political purpose. And the nation is at a moment where we need public servants who are men and women of goodwill, who are men and women who will do the right thing. We need serious people in office, and the choice for the people of Texas is just a very clear one. And I think as we begin to look beyond the kind of politics that we have seen, particularly over the last 3 or 4 years, I think it's really important that we have serious people in office. And so when there's a candidate who is as competent and somebody the kind of character as Colin, I think it's very important that we support them.
Just think about that, man. Think about what you're hearing. This is a lady who will say anything she needs to say to defeat Donald Trump. But she says Ted Cruz, he'll just say anything as long as it fits his political purposes, right? A lady who supports Kamala freaking Harris for president says that we need good people, people of goodwill who will do the right thing and be serious representatives. Kamala Harris, serious representative. You can't make it up. A lady from Wyoming who lost by 70 points in Wyoming says that the choice for the people of Texas is clear. And according to her, that choice is Kamala Harris and a Democrat Senate, right? I mean, just a reminder of who she is and what she represents. And just remember that it wasn't all that long ago when the warmonger daughter of the head warmonger supporting your candidacy and vouching for your character was not exactly a welcome thing in Democrat politics. I mean, it's funny. You know, the Democrats, they like to live in this fantasy that says, you know, the parties have switched, right? They try to sell that goofy thing to condone the racist roots and the racist actions of the Democrat Party. But the truth is, they didn't switch years ago. Democrats, they're still the party of slavery. They're still the party of the Klan. But if there is a switch, it's happening now. If there is a switch happening, it is happening right now.
You were in the Marine Corps enlisted during the War on Terror. Was Liz Cheney with you?
You know, I not only didn't see Liz Cheney with me, I didn't happen to see Mitt Romney or any one of his 57 kids. And Mitt Romney to this day wants to invade every single place on the planet. And again, I'm fine with differences on foreign policy, but I know what it's like to sit there and watch some kid hug his dad on the tarmac and say, "Daddy, don't go. Daddy, don't go." And to know that these scumbags in DC constantly send our guys, our men and women, to go do this without an ounce of duty to send themselves or their kids along makes me freaking sick. And it's because they don't have a sense of duty. We have gotten so far from where we are. Our leaders now, they're just a bunch of bank robbers looting the treasury instead of people who see themselves as what they should see themselves as the knights protecting Western civilization. That's why they've sent the FBI after so many American citizens. They've slowly turned their guns inward because now when these people wake up in the morning and when they go to sleep at night, they think the enemy is you. They don't stress about China. They don't stress about Russia. They don't stress about terror.
And that's it right there, man. I mean, this is all this is about. This is about endless wars. And this is about robbing the freaking taxpayer in every single way they possibly can. And this guy's exactly right. I mean, Liz Cheney and people like Liz Cheney, especially people endorsed by Liz Cheney, they think the enemy is you. The enemy is Donald Trump and anyone that would dare support him, right? These are not principled conservatives. I mean, these are actually, they're not principled people at all. They're globalists. They're power-hungry, deep state apparatchiks. I mean, these are people that are hiding behind some fantasy version of principled conservatism that just doesn't exist. I mean, just look at the list objectively, man. People who blindly support war, they also support Kamala Harris, while people who desperately, desperately support peace support Donald Trump every single time.
Big endorsement. Liz Cheney endorsed Kamala Harris.
Oh, no.
And it's so interesting, isn't it, that every failed warmonger in the established D.C., let's just say machine, is behind Kamala Harris. That the peacemakers are behind Trump and Vance. Blessed are the peacemakers, is what the scriptures say. Your thoughts, JD?
Well, maybe the best thing, not the very best thing, but a very good thing that I could say about the next presidency of Donald J. Trump is that he's going to make sure that people like Liz Cheney are laughed out of the Oval Office instead of rewarded, because this is a person This is a person whose entire career has been about sending other people's children off to fight and die for her military conflicts and her ridiculous ideas that somehow we were going to turn Afghanistan, a country that doesn't even have running water in a lot of places, into a thriving liberal democracy. And for that, Liz Cheney was willing to kill thousands of your children. Liz Cheney, you know what? I think it's the best thing in the world that she's supporting Kamala Harris. You are right. Blessed are the peacemakers. Kamala Harris and Liz Cheney make very, very interesting partners. They get rich when America's sons and daughters go off to die. They get rich when America loses wars instead of winning wars. And they get rich when America gets weaker in the world. We want American strength, American security, and most importantly, peace. Let's bring peace back to the world. And Donald Trump is the candidate to do it.
We do. We need to make sure that people like Liz Cheney get laughed out of the Oval Office every single time, man. We cannot fail, man. We have got to beat these people, and we need to beat them by an absolute landslide, man. There can be no question. There can be absolutely no doubt. And honestly, I believe that's coming, man. I mean, you can't put it any better than J.D. Vance. We want American strength, American security. We want to see peace in the world. And Donald Trump is the only candidate we have to do that. I mean, that's absolutely right, man. And if we keep at it, if we keep doing what we're doing, if we keep spreading the word, enough people are going to see enough truth to make another Trump presidency happen. But that's all I got, guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you haven't already, be a part of our growth. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Most importantly, share the channel. I'll see you in the next one.